Good morning, Superboy The Legacy fans. This is Chris Jacobsen, your Superboy fact checker, introducing our episode today. With me, as always, is our lovely host, Sam J. Rizzo. And as always, Tom Gallagher, our Season 5 showrunner.
Hello. This is going to be good.
Yes, because we are doing another one of our pitching Season 5 episodes, and in this case, it's going to be one written by me. And this is gonna be one that you guys are gonna love. It features one of our favorite of the Superboy TV series villains, Metallo.
Yeah.
So if you guys are ready, I'll start in with reading off our little story.
Ready?
Let's
Absolutely.
go for it.
I'm excited. Like, this is the first one I've not written, so I'm really pumped for this.
Okay.
I hope everyone watching is too.
We actually have a writer's room now.
Yeah, it's not just me.
Okay, I'm gonna shut up. You go ahead, Chris. Let's. Okay. I can't wait to hear what you came up with.
Just a question, Tom. This is the 4th episode, right?
This is episode 4 and 5, technically.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a 2-parter. Okay.
Yeah.
So, Adventures of Superman, Season 5, episodes 4 and 5, Metallo's Blaze of Glory. Okay. Part 1. Exterior, Metropolis Street, outside the Daily Planet building. Day. There is smoke billowing around as we pan in on Metallo's body lying in the street. Superman is leaning over the villain. Metallo's chest plate and robotic arms, which were recently upgraded, are sparking. There is a visible hole in his chest where his kryptonite power source should be. He is staring up into the sky, the hint of a smile on his face. In the background, we can hear the low sound of a flute playing. We hear Metallo speaking in a voiceover. You know, 2 weeks ago, I never would have thought things would turn out like this. Me laying in the street, the Boy Scout leaning over me, trying to help. Cut to a prison cell in Capital City. Dr. Stern is sitting on a simple metal folding chair next to the prison bunk. She seems ill at ease by the pinups of scantily clad women taped around the cell. Her dark-framed glasses low on her nose, her graying blonde hair in its typical bun. I'm really sorry, Roger. I've run the test 5 times. You have stage 4 lung cancer, and the kryptonite has made it metastasize faster. You have maybe 6 months. We pan in on Roger's face, his black hair slicked back over his head. There is a deflated look in his eyes as he begins to speak. Wow, Doc. I'm a lucky guy. A lucky guy. Cut to new opening credits sequence for this new series. Commercial break.
I love
That was really cool.
it. What a way to open it. I mean, it makes sense as well. Like, obviously in the 90s, Lex Luthor lost his hands to cancer because of his kryptonite ring. So it would make sense that he would get lung cancer from having the kryptonite there. Plus, wasn't he a cigar smoker as well? So it's...
Well, Metallo in the show was smoking cigars and cigarettes. So
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that we saw right in his first appearance.
Yeah. So he was doing himself no favors whatsoever by having kryptonite there and all those cigars and cigarettes. So totally makes sense.
Yep.
I'm loving it. Yeah.
And you saw the callback, didn't you?
What, Dr. Stern?
Not that one.
That was a great callback too, because like she kind of took the place of Professor Peterson later in the series. So yeah.
What was the other callback? Oh, the lucky guy thing.
Well, that too, but
I'm a lucky guy. That was so great. Yeah, that was so great.
Well, it's his signature phrase.
Oh, yeah.
That's the one we remember him most for, so you have to use it at least once.
Yeah, if you didn't use it, we'd feel cheated.
Yeah. And the callback I'm talking about, though, is the flute.
The flute? I forget where that was from.
Well,
when was a flute involved?
You'll find out when we get to the end of part 2.
Okay.
So it's a little bit of a tease. Maybe you get to start thinking.
Okay.
Okay. So commercial break ends. Interior Metallo's prison cell. Dr. Stern has a somber look on her face as she places her hand on the back of Metallo's crudely constructed cybernetic fist. Metallo breathes out slowly, coughing a bit as he does so. Roger, she says, there is some help for you. I have spoken to an old associate of mine, Dr. Emmett Vale, of Star Labs in Metropolis. He has had some breakthroughs in both cybernetics and technology to reinforce safeguards to control and or prevent radiation poisoning. He says he might be able to help you, not necessarily cure you, but perhaps extend the 6 months that you have into a year or more. Metallo chuckles. Kind of a moot point considering I'm currently in prison, Doc. Stern begins to detail the plan that she presented to the governor, in which, due to his terminal condition, Metallo has been granted a full pardon for his crimes. He will have to leave in the morning for Metropolis on a special flight and will immediately be transferred to Star Labs for minor tweaks and upgrades, as well as a transplant of healthy donated lungs and a round of aggressive chemotherapy. The process will also prevent him from using kryptonite as a power source for his cybernetics, but rather substitute an experimental solar battery. The battery will negate about 95% of his strength, leaving him no stronger than a normal man, but will also possibly extend his life at least an additional 6 months while he undergoes the upgrades and chemo. We hear Metallo speaking in a voiceover. Given the choice, dying in prison, hacking up what remains of my lungs in 6 months, or going to Metropolis and maybe getting a year with little pain, I guess I took the lesser of two evils. We pan in on Metallo's face as he begins to smile. Sign me up, Doc. I guess I'm a guinea pig now. Interior Star Labs, Metropolis, about a week later, midday. We hear Metallo speaking in a voiceover. I didn't much understand all the science that this Vale character was talking about. What can I say about him? He talked so much technobabble, I thought I was in an episode of Star Trek half the time. Not much personality on him either, kind of stiff, never smiled, very serious. It was like talking to Superboy. Sorry, forgot. Superman now. Except the Boy Scout knew how to smile and make you feel at ease. This particular day, though, I was going to get visitors from Daily Planet to interview me about my predicament. Hey, at least I would get my picture in the paper, right? We pan in on Dr. Emmett Vale, played by Dan Florek from Law and Order SVU. He is wearing a traditional scientist's lab coat, a multitude of pens stuffed into a pocket protector in the left breast pocket of his lab coat, his shirt buttoned all the way to the collar, and a nondescript bluish black tie tightly fastened around his neck. A pair of glasses with small rounded lenses down at the tip of his nose. Remember, Roger, Vale said in a slightly haughty tone, be on your best behavior. We would like the Daily Planet to see the work we are doing here as a benefit to mankind. Yeah, Doc, I gotcha. We hear Metallo speaking in a voiceover. It was moments like this that made me think not too much of this guy. And this is me saying this, knowing that he holds my life in his hands. We pan over to a set of sliding doors as they whoosh open, and three people, one a man with glasses and wearing a drab brown suit, another a man wearing a checkered bow tie and casual attire, jeans and a pale yellow dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up, with a Konica camera adorned with a wide lens around his neck and a flash. The third, a dark-haired woman with a short skirt, ladies' suit jacket, and heels enter Vale's lab. The three are in the middle of a long conversation. Lois, you have to have a slight tendency to be a bit abrasive when speaking to people in an interview. All I said was let me do the introductions, given that I have some familiarity with Metallo from my time at Schuster. The woman rolls her eyes as she replies, he's a two-bit thug rebuilt out of trash that can barely qualify as cybernetics. It's not like he has feelings. We hear Metallo speaking in a voiceover. Boy, she's got a mouth on her. Kind of reminds me of Dr. Vexman, just not in a good way. The guy with the glasses I recognize. He's that Kent fellow who wrote the first few stories about me for the Schuster Herald. Nice to see he made the big time finally. Still quite mild-mannered, I see. This is going to be fun. The trio walk up to Dr. Vale and brief introductions are made. You are quite correct, Ms. Lane, Dr. Vale began, in your assessment of Mr. Corbin being rebuilt with trash. Dr. Schwartz's use of, for lack of a better term, refuse, is what has caused Roger to be in the predicament he is currently in. As I understand Dr. Stern's initial assessment, Kent interjected, he has barely 6 months? You are correct, Mr. Kent. Vale had his left hand in front of his mouth, muffling his voice ever so slightly. My work will hopefully assist Mr. Corbin in living longer than that, a year, possibly a year and a half. So, Lois began, you've transitioned into helping supervillains now, Dr. Vale. Ms. Lane, you obviously do not understand why we are doing this work. Emmett, I shall field this for you, since as usual you have the subtlety of a brick to the face. The voice came from behind the group at the sliding glass doors. The man who spoke to them was tall and thin, with his dark hair slicked back over his head, a smile beaming from his lips. It was Star Lab's director, Dr. Albert Michaels, played by Brent Spiner from Star Trek The Next Generation. He stepped forward in a brisk manner, extending his hand to the group from the Daily Planet, introducing himself to the trio from the Daily Planet. Mr. Corbin is dying. The fact that he has in the past been guilty of some rather questionable actions is not the reason why we are doing this. Again, the man is dying, and helping him might enable us to help the multitudes of persons with both radiation poisonings and amputations to live not just a comfortable life, but also as close to a normal life as is humanly possible. Dr. Michaels was serious, but still had the hint of a smile. Forgive my colleague's abruptness, Clark said. I think that it is just that Mr. Corbin is a known criminal, and I believe that many of the planet's readers would be hard pressed to accept that a supervillain is being upgraded right here in the heart of the city. What would you have to say about that, Dr. Michaels? We hear Metallo speaking in a voiceover. I gotta say, the kid has changed since his days at the Herald. He summed things up to turn it back around into an interview. I'm impressed, and from the look on the faces of everyone else here, they are too. An excellent observation, Mr. Kent, Dr. Michaels began. What I would hope is that the people of Metropolis would understand that first, this is what Star Labs is all about scientific advancement for the ultimate betterment of humanity. And second, as to the statement that Mr. Corbin is a known criminal, I would remind them that he was granted a full pardon for past misdeeds on the express condition that he fully submit himself to this research, which I will remind you has severely downgraded his cybernetic strength to that of an ordinary man, and he no longer has access to kryptonite as a power source. From behind, you can distinctly see the flashing of Jimmy Olsen's camera as he snaps picture after picture of the group. We hear Metallo speaking in a voiceover. This Dr. Michaels guy talks like a used car salesman, kind of slimy. Something about him I don't like. Plus, I feel like I was being ignored, so I had to put my 2 cents worth in and say something. Hello, is this thing on? You guys came here to talk to me, and it feels like you're ignoring me. Kent is the first one to step forward. He extends his hand to Metallo and says, Forgive us, Mr. Corbin. I apologize for our lack of acknowledgement of you. You are, of course, the reason why we are here, and I think the readers might like to hear what you have to say. Lois stood aback. There was the thin indication of a smile on her lips. Again, she was impressed with Clark. Well, Mr. Kent, I've been doing a lot of soul searching these past couple of weeks, and I realized that I've been a first class chump. Things that I've done, the people that I've hurt, it really is true that karma does come back to bite you in the end. That Lana girl at my trial a couple of years back said that I've only ever hurt the people who have tried to help me. The doctor in the emergency room after my heart attack, Dr. Schwartz. All they did was try to help me, and I killed them both. I don't even know if either of them had families that I destroyed. Like I said, first class chump. Dr. Vale here is going to try and help me live, maybe not a long life, but a life. And who knows, maybe I can pay things back a bit when my experiences and Dr. Vale's technology can make things better for others. Well, Mr. Corbin, Clark began, I think that that is a noble sentiment, and I hope that you get the chance to do just that. Make amends for your past and thus make somebody else's life better in the process. Metallo smiles at Clark as the reporter pushes his glasses back up onto the bridge of his nose with his index finger. Can I ask a favor, Mr. Kent? I don't see why not, Mr. Corbin. As I recall it, when you were at the Herald, you had the ability to contact Superboy. I know that he is now called Superman. Do you think you can still get in touch with him for me?" At this statement, Lois's jaw drops open and she exclaims, "What?" "Yeah, I used to be able to get in touch with him." "You've been holding out on me, Kent." There was the hint of venom as Lois spoke Clark's last name. "Lois, you never explicitly asked me if I knew how to get in touch with him." Lois grabbed Jimmy by his collar, and as she dragged the photographer out the sliding glass doors, she shouted back, "We're going back to the planet." "But Lois, you're my ride," Clark called back. "Take a cab." We hear Metallo speaking in a voiceover. "Yep, she's got a mouth on her. I wonder if those two realize they go back and forth like a married couple. I said it before, this was going to be fun." "Well, can you still get in touch with him?" There is a brief smile on Clark's face. "I think so, Mr. Corbin. Can I ask what you want to see him about? So I can let him know that he's not walking into an ambush." "Touche, Mr. Kent. I guess you could say it's the last request of a dying man. And it goes along with this whole thing of wanting to make amends. And not just to the big guy, but to my family." "Your family, Mr. Corbin? I didn't know you had any family." We hear Metallo speaking in a voiceover. "Oh, he is good. He's using this as part of his interview. I'm very impressed. I don't have a wife or kids or anything like that, but I did have a brother once, and he had a wife and they had a son." Clark sits down on a stool next to Metallo's hospital-style bed and listens intently as Corbin begins to relate his history. That he was the youngest of two sons of Metropolis police detective Edward Corbin. About 35 years earlier, when Roger was barely 15, his father had been murdered by hitmen under the orders of Boss Moxie. Roger and his older brother, John, had no idea about all this, just that their father had been murdered. Given that the boys were living with their sick mother in what is now called Suicide Slum, John went to work for unsavory elements to try and keep food on the table and a roof over their heads. What he didn't know was that the unsavory elements he went to work for was the crime family run by Boss Moxie. Over the course of the next 8 years, John Corbin made a name for himself amongst the family as one of the most dangerous and cold-blooded of Boss Moxie's hired guns, even outshining Moxie's own son, Bruno Mannheim, and two deadly up-and-comers, Matt Danner and Joe Casey. When their mother, Margaret, finally died 4 years into John's tenure with the Moxie crime family, John brought his little brother in, and they started making hand over fist for the family. Soon after, John married a cocktail waitress named Susie from one of Moxie's clubs, and they had a son, Little John, or Johnny. John was happy with his life. He had a loving wife, little Rugrat, was making money, and Roger was there with him, sharing in the successes as the two brothers always did. That is, until he found out the truth about their father's death, that it was ordered by Moxie and carried out by Mannheim, Danner, and Casey. When John found out, he was livid. As Metallo relates the story, you can see it in his face, the old wound that still hasn't healed. John had told his brother, and they planned on an ingenious bit of revenge. They were going to rob Moxie's club, the Gilded Pheasant, and take the four of them and get out of town permanently. The plan, however, didn't work. John and Roger got caught by Mannheim and Danner and brought before Boss Moxie. Moxie let Roger go on the condition that he never come back to Metropolis. Ever. John, however, was not so lucky. He got the cement overcoat. John willingly took it as his punishment on the condition that Susie and little Johnny were left alone. Conditions that Boss Moxie agreed to since he was a family man, and he had a code to never harm the family of an adversary. Roger was escorted to the train station, and he headed for Florida, where he made his way as a petty bank robber and thief. He got scared a few years back when he heard through the grapevine that Casey had made a base of operations down there. And then Danner, who had assumed control of the family, showed up, ostensibly to visit his daughter at college. "I remember that incident," Clark said, taking a deep breath. "Casey kidnapped Sarah Danner to try and muscle his way into control of the family. Unfortunately for him, Superboy involved himself and rescued Sarah. Casey went to prison, Danner and his daughter became estranged, and last I'd heard, they weren't speaking. How do you know so much about it, Mr. Kent? It was I was kind of dating Sarah at the time. Ah, things didn't work out, I guess, huh? Not really, no. Well, let me change the subject a little bit then. I need Superman's help to find my nephew. Make certain that he isn't going down the wrong path like I or his dad did. Clark stood up and put his hand on Corbin's shoulder. He had a reassuring smile on his face. Mr. Corbin, I will see to it that Superman comes and sees you. I will tell him everything you have told me. I know he will want to help you. You know, kid, I like you. Ever since you walked in that door, you haven't once called me Metallo or looked at me like I was garbage, even though I'm made out of it. Metallo chuckles. You never called me anything but Mr. Corbin. You're a good man, Kent, and probably the nicest reporter I have ever met. Thank you, Mr. Corbin. I will try and get Superman here as soon as possible. But you know how busy he can be with saving the world. We hear Metallo speaking in a voiceover. As I watched him walk out, I started to feel a bit better, knowing that maybe things were going to be okay. He has a lot of things in common with the Boy Scout. They both know how to reassure you. I think I'm in good hands as far as seeing the big guy one more time. Commercial break.
I'm loving it. Yeah, I remember you telling me there was going to be a season 1 callback, and yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah, Sarah Danner. Wow,
Yeah.
that was really good.
I like when stories they tie other things that don't seem to be tied together together. I like it
Mm.
when even if you're not bringing the character back, you just make a mention of them. You know, so
Right, and Superboy never really did that. It was just like what Elia's always said. It was mini movies of the week. That's what they were
yeah,
trying to do. It's and
Mm.
I mean, with television nowadays, you have television's changed story wise. Like it's an overarching theme going out through the entire season. So, but it's nice that you connected the whole angle of the Sarah Danner and Whit Metallo and his family and stuff. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
yeah, and of course seeing as how in that season one episode it was established that Matt Danner was in charge of the biggest crime family on the East Coast. It only made sense to make it that that family that Boss Moxie had been in charge of
Mhm.
is the same family.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
But I
I'm,
love
yeah.
I love how like in this story so far, every single character is like I mean, I could hear Michael Kellen's Metallo as you're doing the voiceover. It's just so good.
well,
I think you're doing a pretty good impression of him, to be
Yeah,
fair.
I'm
right.
trying my best. I'm not perfect, but I think more of it is mostly the way he spoke. The colloquialisms, the instead of saying that he says dat. You know,
Yeah.
to try and he's not a sophisticated person. He's a he's a blue collar guy. So you got to have the blue collar speech to him.
Oh, absolutely. And it's a very particular type of blue collar speech, and you've really nailed that. Like, yeah, I can totally picture him in this episode. Like, it's great. I'm loving it so far. And oh, I've got to say as well, I loved the stuff you've written for Lois as well. Like, you're holding out on me,
Yeah.
Kent. Like,
Yeah,
that's
that was
great.
fantastic.
Yeah, because
When you said that, Chris, I started laughing. It was so good. It was so
Yeah.
good.
well, it's given that the way Tom established the fact that Lois still has not met Superman. Okay,
Yeah.
and
She's seen him, but he's not stuck around.
yeah,
Right.
I think you'll get a payoff on that shortly. That's all I'm going to say.
That's good.
Um, but to try and the fact that she's dragging Jimmy around like he's a drag doll. I mean, that's definitely Terry Hatcher right there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, oh, I'm loving it, and just it's great that you're actually using Jimmy Olsen as well because he's often so forgotten in Superman
He's
stories. The
a
fact that
he's
he's there taking pictures during this whole conversation, love it.
He doesn't have much to do throughout this whole two-parter, but he is there. He is a
Yeah,
presence. The only
that's
planet staffer that's not there is the chief, because this
but
is more of a Metallo story than anything else.
yeah,
Shall I continue, gentlemen?
absolutely.
Okay. Commercial break ends. Interior Star Labs Metropolis, same day, mid-evening. Metallo was laying back in his hospital bed, cybernetic arms folded behind his head as he watched reruns of Gilligan's Island on the medium-sized color TV on the metal stand next to his bed. He was chuckling. There was a faint sound of rustling wind from somewhere, but Metallo paid it no mind, thinking there was a window open somewhere. Is this the one where the space capsule lands on the island and the castaways try to use it to escape? The voice came from Metallo's left. It was youthful, but deep and familiar. Metallo turned and came face to face with Superman. The man of steel stood with his hands on his hips in the classic heroic pose, smiling. Superboy, man, you came! I did, Metallo. It's good to see you. You're looking good, all things considered. How long has it been? Superman stretched out his right hand and offered it to the former supervillain, and Metallo took the proffered hand. About a year or so now, since the incident in Smallville, when you used that giant sheet of lead on me. The two old adversaries laughed together. Despite the history between them, there was no animosity, no hard feelings. Shortly after that is when Dr. Stern found out about my condition. Metallo swallowed hard. Yeah, Superman responded, lowering his eyes. Kent told me your situation and how you want to make amends to your family, specifically your nephew. I really can't promise anything, but I will try my best. You have my word on that. Soups, Metallo began. Thanks. And for what it's worth, I'm sorry for everything I ever did to you. Metallo, don't worry about it. We all make mistakes. My mother has always been fond of saying that it is the knowledge and experience we gain from those mistakes that define us. Superman smiled at his old foe. We hear Metallo speaking in a voiceover. He's good. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm in good hands. It feels a bit strange to be in the same room with you and not feel like I'm dying. For that, you can thank me, Superman. Dr. Vale entered the room from a side entrance, his tone haughty and aloof. Vale, Dr. Emmett Vale, it is a pleasure to meet you. Superman extended his hand to Vale and they conversed for a few minutes. Vale explaining that Metallo's cybernetic setup is now powered by a small solar battery of his own design instead of kryptonite. As they spoke, Superman was nodding. Having been around Professor Peterson as often as he had been during his time in Florida as Superboy, he understood the technobabble. Superman stepped over to Metallo, placing his hand on the former villain's shoulder. I'll do what I can, Metallo, as fast as I can, and we'll be in touch. Superman shook Vale's hand again and exited this laboratory in a blur of super speed. Well, I'm glad that is over with. What a sanctimonious, self-righteous, goody-goody jerk. Can you believe the attitude coming from him? And that phony smile? Metallo turned to face Vale, a puzzled look on his face. What do you mean, Doc? He's a good egg. I've known him long enough to know that when he tells you something, he means what he says. Perhaps, Roger, perhaps. But doesn't it gall you to know that he is going to live with the adulation of millions while you're going to die forgotten? Barely a footnote in his history? We hear Metallo speaking in a voiceover. I hadn't thought much about that until this moment. But for once, the doc was actually kind of making sense. Superman gets to be the hero of millions, and what do I get? Bedpans and a casket. I know now that the doc was pushing my buttons, but boy, he sure pushed the right ones. What are you getting at, Doc? Simple, Roger. What if I could give you the chance to go out in a blaze of glory? You would forever be remembered as the man who killed Superman. Your name would be revered amongst the criminal element alongside the likes of Capone, Dillinger, Bonnie and Clyde. You would be in the history books. Vale's hands were gesturing and waving in the air as he spoke, his gesturing becoming more and more animated with each sentence. Doc, I know this is probably a stupid question, But ain't you supposed to be like a do-gooder scientist yourself? This kinda don't sound like something a do-gooder scientist would say. I'm going to be completely honest with you, Roger. Being a do-gooder scientist doesn't pay the bills, at least not as well as I would have hoped when I left my employment as a civilian scientist in the military. That is why I'm here, secretly employed by a certain organization in Metropolis. Organization? Criminal organization, Roger. A secret group known as Skull. We hear Metallo speaking in a voiceover. That is by far the stupidest name for a criminal organization I have ever heard. And this coming from a guy called Metallo. But Roger, this would be better coming from our group's illustrious leader. Please allow me to introduce you to the Atomic Skull. Dr. Vale widely gestured his left arm towards the very center of the room as a flash of light materialized, a doorway of energy opening in front of the two men. Metallo briefly shielded his eyes from the intense light. Out of that energy doorway stepped a tall, thin man clad in a yellow and green costume, a skull-like mask on his face covered by a metallic yellow helmet. As he stepped closer to Metallo, one could easily feel the self-absorbed arrogance and confidence dripping from this man. As he spoke, his voice was altered by an electronic voice distorter. You are probably wondering why I'm here, Mr. Corbin. Suffice it to say, Superman is a threat to our operations in Metropolis. Operations that are also being threatened by the organization that killed your father and brother. Dana is no longer in charge of that organization. Bruno Mannheim is, and he has redubbed that group as Intergang. If you help us to kill Superman, then we will have free reign to stamp out Intergang. The Atomic Skull was rubbing his green gloved hands as he spoke. We hear Metallo speaking in a voiceover. This guy looked utterly ridiculous. I had to fight with myself to not laugh at him. Plus, I didn't really give a damn if one organization or the other won out here. This was none of my concern, given how much longer I had left, and I told him so. Why should I involve myself in your war with Intergang? What's it going to do for me? I'm dying anyhow. Simple, Mr. Corbin. I can give you an assurance in no uncertain terms that Superman can't. I can produce your nephew for you. We hear Metallo speaking in a voiceover. With that, he got me hook, line, and sinker. Atomic Skull, you're a lucky guy. I'm in. Commercial break.
Love it. We've got Intergang, we've got Bruno Mannheim. Yeah, Atomic Skull, I'm not hugely familiar with. The only thing I think I know Atomic Skull from is when he briefly ran the DEO in Supergirl, in the Supergirl comics. That was only a few years ago, so yeah, I've got a big gap in my Superman knowledge regarding that character. But
And that is
Intergang is
why I am the
something.
fact checker.
Exactly. But Intergang's something I've been hoping we could bring back in anyway. I think I've even spoken to you in the past about the character. I'm forgetting her name now, but the one from A Kind of Princess, Clark's
Sarah
old
Danner.
flame. Yeah,
Yeah.
like I think I briefly said to you a while ago, maybe she could be like the head of Intergang at some point. But
Yeah, and remember I
despite
told
her
you.
father,
Yeah, and remember I told you. No, I got plans for them.
and I'm loving it. Like,
I love the voiceover stuff with Metallo because like you've nailed his character. Like it's just so good.
Yeah, I
it's
mean this
almost
this
giving it like a noir sort of feel to it as well,
Yeah.
like those old
yeah,
detective
and
movies.
besides, I mean, without the voiceovers, this would be just an a-okay, set of episodes. But with it,
Mm,
it just gives it a little bit of a flair. It's
mm,
not a Superman story; it's a Metallo story. So you got to tell it from his point of view.
mm.
Hmm.
It makes it different. It makes it feel like a more of a special episode, like something that warrants having a two-parter rather than a single one-shot.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's great. I'm loving it.
and we
Yeah.
are doing
It's
a little bit of universe building here, so we have to
yeah.
do that.
I mean, with Inner Gang and going back to the Danners and connecting it to them, like yeah, this is it's really really good. I like how you just keep like building the whole Inner Gang angle. So yeah, this is really good.
Yeah, I'm loving it. It's great.
Ready for the next part of it?
Definitely.
Yep.
Okay. All right, Sam, let's go to black again.
Going to black.
Okay. Commercial break ends. We hear Metallo speaking in a voiceover as a montage plays of the events of the next week. Atomic Skull and Dr. Vale secreted me away that very night to some hidden location in Suicide Slum. The really messed up part was that the building they hid me in was the old brownstone that I grew up in before Dad died. Vale replaced the burned stumps of arms I had with these streamlined metallic jobs that he said were pretty durable. Collapsed titanium, I think he said they were made out of. Not only durable, but strong too. I think he said that I'd be able to press about 75 to 90 tons easily. He also equipped the new arms with these blasters, I guess you could call them. Vale said they were based upon this weapon he designed for the Army about 4 to 5 years ago called a Thermaton 14. He said the project got canceled when Lex Luthor stole the weapon from the Army base in Florida where it was being tested. Luthor. Always Luthor. Note, as Metallo describes this part referencing Luthor, we see a brief flashback to the events of the season 1 episode Luthor Unleashed, where Lex and Leo steal the Thermaton 14. The best part, though, was my new chest armor. Again, made from collapsed titanium but colored black like my original chest piece. And right in the center of it was this dome filled with the good old green stuff. I felt complete with the kryptonite powering me again. So what if it was probably killing me? Who cares? I was whole again. I was Metallo again. And I was ready, baby. Exterior, the street in front of the Daily Planet, mid-afternoon, 1 week after Superman's visit to Metallo. A dark-colored sedan parked in front of the Daily Planet building erupted in flames as a greenish blast of energy collided with it, seemingly from nowhere. A man in a long trench coat and fedora stood in front of the exploded car, smoke billowing from his outstretched arms. Traffic was stopped all around. People were running from the scene, panicked and screaming. The scene was chaos, pure and simple. Superman! Oh, Superman! Come out, wherever you are. Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen come running out the front of the Daily Planet building. Olsen's Konica snapping photo after photo of the scene in quick succession, as though his finger was holding down the button. Lois Lane, ever the professional reporter, started shouting questions at the mysterious man in the trench coat and fedora. Sir, what is it that you want here? What is your issue with Superman? Little lady, he shouted back. I just want to take down that sanctimonious do-gooder before I literally kick the bucket. Metallo? Lois shouted back, puzzled. But you were being helped at Star Labs. Metallo flicked his hat off, revealing himself to Lois. Lady, I got me a better offer, and all's I gotta do is kill the Blue Boy Scout. Now where is he? We hear Metallo speaking in a voiceover. I really gotta say this, I sure know how to make one hell of an entrance. Like the day I surprised Superboy at the community center when he was getting that award. We're not exactly in the know on how to reach him, Lois yelled back, trying to stall Metallo. Well, where's Kent? He can get him. No need to bother, Mr. Kent. I'm right here. Superman was floating in the air above the scene, his steely-eyed gaze knifing into Metallo like a pair of daggers. Metallo smiled, throwing off his trench coat and revealing his upgraded arms and chest. We now see the full regalia of his new upgraded form, the light from the midday sun gleaming off it. But nothing was gleaming brighter than the green glow from the small glass-like dome on his chest, housing a large chunk of green kryptonite. You like the new me? Just got upgraded by a group called Skull. Yeah, I know how ridiculous the name sounds, but beggars can't be choosers. The green stuff is fully shielded from the rest of me. They say it's still going to kill me, but at least I'm shielded better. And it powers these blasters on my wrist. I think that scientists at Skull called them Thermaton 14 blasters. I love it. You ain't never going to catch me with my pants down again. Or knock me into an open manhole. Superman gulped hard. Things were about to get serious. We hear Metallo speaking in a voiceover. The Boy Scout looked scared. I'd never seen that look on his face before. This was gonna be fun. End of part one.
That's a great cliffhanger. Seriously. Oh man.
This is gonna be fun. I love all the callbacks, and they're all like they're perfect.
Yeah.
You know. So
And of
yeah,
course, having to, you're putting it back to season one with the Thermaton 14 and using the just the sequence of Lex and Leo stealing it in the flashback is perfect.
yeah.
Oh yeah. And I just love that, we're going to get. I'll make sure that when I edit this, I actually put a clip of them stealing it from that episode, you know, in it. Just, yeah. I love that you're actually making callbacks to season one because let's face it, from season two onwards, they very rarely referenced anything from season one. Like, there was.
Yeah, I think the
Yeah.
only reference that we really had in season two of something from season one, other than TJ going off to work with his father's paper,
Mm,
was the kryptonite itself. Because remember, Dr. Schwartz, when he rebuilt Metallo, he said, I found this in the sewer.
mm.
That's right. Yeah.
I think they referenced the time machine from Hollywood at one point as well.
That
If
too,
I
yeah.
remember.
And
Yeah.
of course, there was of course bringing Mixie back,
Yeah.
but that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So
it
it's great because it's one of those. Oh, yep, sorry, my alarm just went off. No, it's great to have callbacks to season one because it's one of those things that because the actor changes, it's always that question, isn't it? Like if you replace the lead actor, is it the same universe? And yeah, it's supposed to be the same universe. They just changed the actor. It's like
yeah,
how Val Kilmer's Batman is supposed to be Michael Keaton's Batman. Is it's supposed to be the same universe, but
yeah.
Mhm.
yeah. So it's great to have callbacks to it because it's just yeah.
Well, I
And I
I
love
love
that you referenced Luther Unleashed because we all know how much we love that episode. So.
I mean,
the
of
bet the
of all, it is the best of season one.
right. It
Absolutely.
is.
And
Certainly
it's the
Scott
only
Wells
time
is the
that
best episode.
yeah, it's the only time that he actually was acting good,
But I
not the
like
Apart
how you
from
Steal of the Dead.
I
yeah.
like Chris how you logically thought through all these little callbacks and they all make sense within this episode. So
Yeah,
Mm.
I mean,
I'm not making a clip show where I just throw clips up just to
right,
throw clips up.
Yeah.
right. We're not. Well, we're gonna make a callback just to make a callback. You're not doing that, which is fantastic. And I love um what you said, Tom. Like Chris is building the world and building up Metropolis and building up the whole gangster side of Metropolis, kind of like what we saw in Gotham with the Batman. Um, you're really building up the rogues gallery, not just Metallo, and you're building up guys from the comics we've never seen in live action. So that's fantastic.
Mm.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
of all the villains that Superman ever faced in the Bronze Age of comics, the Atomic Skull is one of my favorites. Okay, yeah, he had a gaudy costume, but it was
Hmm.
still designed by Kurt Swan, and you don't get any better than Kurt.
Oh no, you
You know,
No.
don't.
and
Absolutely.
just the evilness of the Atomic Skull is just perfect for this.
And the best is like again, you have nailed Michael Kellen's Metallo. Him standing there or sitting there going, God, this guy is so whacked out of his mind. He looks so messed up. Like I could see him saying that, like
Yeah.
in voiceover. It's so funny. But yeah, you nailed Michael Kellen's Metallo. You really did.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I'll tell you what. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you can just write all the intergang episodes, anything involving the mob in season five. Like those are your episodes. You can. You're doing the setup. You can do the payoff. Like I can't wait to hear more because it's being set up so well. Like I'm loving it.
Yeah, it's Chris, really well done. Part one, I thought was really well done.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm glad you liked it.
It's like
I, I
it's like an actual pitch for an episode. Like it is so good. I was like, God, this is really good. So
Yeah.
well, it's somewhere in the multiverse. It does exist. So
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I love Lois. You've been holding out on me, Kent. What the hell? I could so see Terry Hatcher saying that. That is so funny. Been holding out on me, Smallville. Like, yeah, so good.
Yeah.
Should we
I'm
move on to part 2?
Well, before we go on to part 2, I just want to tell Sam this. Now, I told you this, Tom. Do you realize that most of this got written in the last week?
Oh wow, now that's insane. That's
Yeah,
insane.
I had writer's block for almost 6 months, and then
Uh huh.
Tom, messaged me on Sunday, and he said, "So we're thinking about doing the episode on like Saturday. Do you think you'll be ready?" And I was like, "Oh,
Oh no.
crap!"
Crap. Right.
So over the next couple of days, I got it done, and then I messaged Tom uh, yesterday, and I said, "Part 2 is half done. I should have it finished by tonight," and I was done by 11 o'clock last night.
Wow. Wow. So it's hot off the
You've done a great
presses.
job.
Yep,
Wow.
But
and
sometimes that's what you need, though, isn't it? You sort of you need a deadline, and I
yeah,
mean,
I
as you
needed
said
an
to me
editor to
before,
push my butt to push me into the limelight.
yeah. But I mean, as you'd said to me before as well, like it was 90% written in your head.
Yeah,
You just needed to get it down on paper, like just get it typed out or whatever, and it shows that you've been thinking about this for a long time because it's really well thought out.
yeah,
Like everything has made sense. Like it's not just been this happens, then this happens, and this happens. It's been what's the word? It's progressed in a it's just progressed in a way that makes sense, and it
Yeah,
seems yeah,
it's very logical how like
yeah.
this is a year after the episode threesome. Like I love that Metallo goes I mean Superman. Like that's just smart
Mm.
writing. It's just really funny. Like
I
and
yeah.
think
that
that's going to be an ongoing joke in season 5 is that people keep calling him Superboy.
I mean Superman. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
The double
because you got to
take. Yeah.
Yeah, because you got to think about it. I mean, that's one thing that they never established in the comics. I mean, as soon in the comics, at least the Silver and Bronze Age, when he went from Superboy to Superman, it was instantaneous, and everybody started calling him Superman.
Yeah.
That's not how people are.
Yeah,
People are
he's
going to
been
make
Superboy
mistakes.
for 4 years. Like people are
It,
gonna think of him as that for a long time.
yeah, and you got to think of it in the same way as somebody who is transgendered. Their family for a little while after that are going to be making the mistakes of calling them he instead of she, or she instead of he. They have to retrain their brain.
Mm.
And I know it's a weird analogy there, but it makes sense.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. It takes a little while for you to think of it in a different way. Absolutely, like with anything. Like
Yeah,
let's
Mm-hmm.
face it, if it's something for a very long time and then one day there's a change, yeah, it's going to take people a little while to really wrap their head around it. And yeah, he's been Superboy for 4 years. I mean, people are going to keep calling him Superboy for a while. Like, it's not going to be an overnight thing. Like, you're right. In the comics, they never really address that, and yeah, I'm glad that you are.
well,
This is the awkward stage of calling Superboy Superman. Do we call him Superman? No, I'm calling him.
Yeah.
I'm still calling him Superboy. Forget that.
Yeah. And you know what? As well, the villains. Like, I mean, villains don't like Superman particularly. So if they know that still calling him Superboy annoys him, they're gonna keep calling him Superboy.
yeah.
Uh huh.
So before we go into part 2, I want to tell you this, Sam. The beginning of the opening sequence of part 2, I
Okay.
sent to Tom to let him read it and see what he thought,
Okay.
and he was laughing because it's funny, funny but
Yeah.
serious at the same time.
Okay.
It's a great way to open the episode. Like, it just works.
Yep.
So
All
yeah.
right, so let's go on to
Let's
part
stop
2.
teasing and just yeah, just get into it. We've done the next time on Superboy TV spot, so
Yep. Okay. Part 2. We hear Metallo speaking in a voiceover. Last time on the Adventures of Superman, you nice folks saw all of this. All the important events from last week's episode are replayed in a montage of scenes. We hear Metallo speaking in a voiceover. And now, on the Adventures of Superman. Exterior Metropolis Street, outside the Daily Planet building. Day. Superman is floating in the air above the scene, arms folded across his chest. He is staring Metallo down. Metallo is standing in the street below, in a fighter's stance, smirking. Neither is speaking. We hear Metallo speaking in a voiceover. I guess you could say that it looked kind of like the lead up to the infamous thriller in Manila. Two steely eyed adversaries staring each other down, neither one making a move against the other. It was really, really boring. I was just about to open my big mouth and break the tense silence when. What is the meaning of this, Metallo? Superman said, his words stern but measured. When we spoke a week ago, you were talking about how you wanted a fresh start, a chance to make amends. This doesn't look much like a fresh start. It looks more like you were falling back on old habits. Metallo laughs, a hearty, arrogant bellow of a laugh. As I said, I got a better offer from a group that doesn't much care for you. Not to mention a new and improved body. Besides, they said they could get me a chance with my nephew, something that you couldn't give me a definite promise on. So you're not even going to give me a chance to find your nephew? You're just going to throw away the second chance you've been given? We pan in on Metallo's upper body, his arms stretched out in front of him. In a word, Metallo says, a devilish smirk on his face. Yup. Metallo activates the kryptonite-powered Thermaton 14 blasters on his forearms, the barrels glowing bright green as he opens fire. Cut to new opening credit sequence for this new series. Commercial break. I told you it was funny, but
really
serious.
Yeah, this is really good.
It's a serious situation, but it's peppered with humor.
Mhm.
So
Which is what the best Superboy episodes were always done.
That's right.
Absolutely, yeah.
I love
some of the best comic books of all time do that. I mean, you know, it's especially like the Silver Age and Bronze Age. Like there's some serious stuff in there, but it's always got like a good layer of humor as well, and that's why I love that era of comics. I think something like 70% of the comics in my collection are pre-1980s. It's just, yeah, it's a great era. Like the Bronze Age gets a lot of stick, but I really like the Bronze Age. I think there's a lot of fun in that, and this reminds me very much of Silver and Bronze.
Well, you got to remember, you know, I grew up on the Bronze Age comics, okay? And Superboy, the TV series, even though it was set in the late 80s and then early 90s, it drew a lot from that period of comics.
Oh, yeah.
Mostly because that's all that Ilya could get as far as the stories.
But also as well, like, let's face it, after the Bronze Age, Superboy didn't exist in canon anymore. So it's like, it has to draw from the pre-modern age, as it's called, like, just purely because otherwise, what are you going to do? But it's great. And yeah, Superboy always, that's one of the things, like, we talked about Luthor Unleashed briefly earlier, and like the first Bizarro episode, like, they are basically almost shot-for-shot recreations of the comics in places. And it's great. You're not redoing a comic story necessarily. You're like capturing the tone, and that I think that's more the flavor, the tone. I think that's the most important thing, and you've nailed it. Like, I'm really enjoying this so far.
I just every time you do a Metallo voiceover, I just think Michael Kellan, total Michael Kellan.
I can imagine you hear his voice in your head as I'm speaking.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's the great thing. I think it's as we hear your voiceover, like your impression is good, and I think the fact is, as you're doing that impression, we're sort of almost filling in the gaps. It's like I'm hearing two voices at once. I'm hearing your impression, and I'm actually hearing Michael Kellan at the same time, and it's thoroughly enjoying it. Like the voiceover is such a great like narrative device as well.
Yep,
really good
when used right. That's the whole thing.
But it makes sense for this. Like, it totally makes sense. And Metallo, like, I totally buy that he's a character that would be narrating his own story in his head
because he's that narcissistic. Yeah,
he talked to himself a lot. Like he was always talking to himself out loud. But I can imagine that when he wasn't doing that, he was still doing it, just only in his head. So it's completely makes sense for the character.
I think of that more of a defense mechanism for him, given what I'm establishing as his history. You know, he uses that as a defense mechanism so he doesn't have to deal with reality.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Because let's face it, as well, in part one, he seemed like he was dealing with reality for a bit. Like, he wanted to make amends, he wanted to find Johnny. But then the moment he gets an opportunity to go back on that, he took it. Like, it didn't take him long at all to decide to do that. And it's just because that is kind of his character. He,
Yeah.
he
And I'll
might
and
he
we'll
might
we'll
think for a second he wants
yeah,
to be a good
we'll
guy,
dive a
but
little bit into that
yeah.
in part 2.
Oh, good.
So you'll see some of his reasoning, but that's all I'm going to say.
Excellent.
All right. So are we ready?
We're ready.
Okay. You got to go black, Sam. Okay.
Got black.
Uh, Commercial break ends. Exterior Metropolis Street outside the Daily Planet. Superman is being held in place against the wall of Daily Planet's third floor by a concentrated blast of the kryptonite energy flowing from Metallo's Thermaton 14 blasters. His skin taking on a pale greenish tinge as his body is bombarded with the sickening radiation. You can see the pain on the Man of Steel's face. This is not like any of the previous encounters with either Metallo or kryptonite. The focusing lenses in the Thermaton 14 blasters seem to be increasing the pain Superman is feeling, and you can see it quite clearly in the agony displayed. Lois Lane screams at Metallo, "Stop! You're killing him!" "That was the idea, little lady. I just can't stand the idea that he gets to live a long and happy life, making the world safe, being the idol of millions, while I get bedpans and a casket. It ain't fair. So if I gotta go down, he's going first. I mean, I'm like this because of him." We hear Metallo speaking in a voiceover. "Okay, so maybe I was being just a tad melodramatic. He wasn't really the reason why all this happened. That was definitely me. I guess maybe I didn't want to go out without swinging, but I couldn't exactly hit the angel of death in the face. I needed a punching bag, and he was going to have to do the trick." Metallo shut down his wrist blasters, and Superman fell to the pavement, crumpling like a wet piece of paper. Lois ran to the Man of Steel's side to check on him, his skin still a pale shade of green that seemed to be dissipating as each tick of the clock went by. Metallo stood motionless for what seemed an eternity, the gravity of the situation sinking in. "Is he dead?" he asked finally. Lois Lane looked up, a defiant look in her eyes, as she cradled the hero in her arms. "No," she said. "He's alive, but he's not doing good. No thanks to you." "Then stand aside, little lady. The bigwigs at Skull want him dead, and I have to deliver." "But why? A week ago you seemed a changed man, scared but wanting nothing more than to make amends. What changed you?" "The leader of Skull, a man called the Atomic Skull, told me in no uncertain terms that he could get me a chance with my nephew. Superman couldn't promise even that." "So you gave up your chance because I couldn't give you a definite?" Superman's voice was weak, cracking as he struggled to pull himself up into a standing position. He braced himself against a phone booth in front of the Daily Planet building, trying his best to not look as weak as he felt. The kryptonite had definitely been supercharged by the Thermaton 14 blasters, and it was taking longer for him to fully recover. Metallo opened his mouth to speak, but before he could utter one word, an energy door opened behind him, and a group of men in skin tight olive green jumpsuits filed out behind the villain, each one armed with a high tech energy rifle and a skull like emblem emblazoned on their left breasts. "The man in charge wants to see you, Corbin," the obvious leader of the cadre of skull troopers said, his weapon pointed at Metallo's chest. "He's a bit perturbed right now. March." "What for?" "Don't ask questions, Corbin. Just move into the doorway now." Metallo turned towards the energy doorway and walked through, followed by the cadre of skull troopers, each one vanishing into nothingness as they stepped in. Within moments, they were gone, the doorway closed, and the street in front of the Daily Planet quiet once more. Superman was still leaning against the phone booth, but he was starting to look better, less like he was at death's door and more like himself. Lois Lane turned to him. This was the first chance that she had had of late to be this close to him, since he first came to Metropolis. Their eyes locked for the briefest of moments. Are you okay? She finally asked. I've been better, Ms. Lane, but I'm getting there. Jimmy Olsen was snapping photograph after photograph of Superman, trying to get his front page shot for the chief. Who were those guys? Lois and Jimmy asked in unison. The other shoe, Superman replied as he stepped away from the phone booth, his footing and stance steadier, surer. Come again, Superman? There was a curious look on Lois's face as she spoke. You've heard the phrase, waiting for the other shoe to drop? Those guys are the other shoe. Agents of Skull, the group that Metallo mentioned. Things have just gotten a lot more complicated. Commercial break.
Awesome. I can't wait to find out exactly why they stopped him. Like, they wanted him to kill Superman, and then they drag him away pretty much right as he's about to accomplish his task. Like, they better have a good reason.
Right, right.
And I just
We're
love
pulling the plug.
The only thing I can think at the moment is to their reasoning is like, you mentioned our name.
Yeah.
Not going to say a word. Not going to say a word. Not going to say a word.
Like, Metallo just snitched out. Like, he just snitched on who put him up to it, basically. So,
like I said, not going to say a word. Not going to say a word.
But no, I'm loving it, and I love, as usual as well, like Superman when he's getting kryptonite poisoning. You actually wrote into the thing like his skin is turning green and stuff, because that's an important element, I think, for this version of Superman. Like, when he's in contact with kryptonite, his skin literally turns green, like the comic.
Yeah, when it comes to the live action versions, there's been only 2 live action versions of Superman where we actually saw something of that effect occur. One of them was Superboy, the other was Smallville. If you remember in Smallville, when he came into contact, you saw the veins on his hands start to green up. But that's all we got.
Mm.
Superman movies with Reeve, we never saw any changes. We didn't see it in Man of Steel. We didn't see it in Returns.
It's funny. I can't even think if they did it in the animated series, and I can't remember them doing it.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's one of those, just such a simple thing. I mean, especially since, let's face it, comic books as they were originally designed were for kids. And when you make his skin turn green when he's in contact with kryptonite, like, it really helps the kids at home know what's happening. Like, they see Superman's skin turning green, it's like, oh, the kryptonite's poisoning him. Like, it helps. It helps a lot. And it's like, it's funny that Smallville and Superboy are the only ones to really take advantage of that. Like, I don't know. I mean, if I was going to direct a Superman movie for Warner Brothers, that would be in it immediately. It's one of the first things I'd make sure. Like, if Superman's getting poisoned by kryptonite, he turns green. That's what happens.
Well, it's right out of what we've been talking about since we started talking about Chris's episode today. It's right out of the Silver Age, right out of the Kurt Swan books. Like, every time that Superman was exposed to kryptonite in the comics, they colored his skin green. So, yeah, it's right out of the pages of the comics.
No, I loved as well that you had his like arm cannons. Like, I forget the name of the thing, the something Tron cannons, but like
the Thermaton 14s.
Yeah, and you said like they were glowing green as he was doing it, so it was obviously like their kryptonite infused thermatron. Like, like, they're extra deadly. Like, they were pretty like that. They worked pretty well against Superboy in season 1. I mean, not for long enough, but if they had kryptonite power like in with them, maybe Lex could have actually taken him out in Luthor Unleashed.
And think about it. This has been 4 years since that cannon was used, so obviously Vale has refined the design on it, and he's miniaturized it for Metallo.
I'm loving it. Like, it's really cool. It's funny as well though when I forgot to say this when you first like introduced it in part 1. Right at the end, when he like rips off the thing, you see like he's got a new metallic chest and like his arm cannons and stuff. I was just picturing from the neck down, he was just Colossus from the X-Men films, just pure silver. But obviously painted like it's like a blackened version of it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes. But yeah. Shall we continue?
I'm game.
Sweet.
Go ahead, Chris.
Okay. Commercial break ends. We hear Metallo speaking in a voiceover. When I materialized in Skull's secret base, those boys behind me with their weapons trained on me, I could tell that I was in really deep doggy doo. The look on the Atomic Skull's face, or what I could tell of it, did not look happy. I decided to keep my mouth shut, which is really out of character for me, and I let him do all the talking. That was probably a good idea. Do you have any idea what your big mouth has just done, Mr. Corbin? Even with the electronic voice distorter, you can hear the rage in the Atomic Skull's voice. You opened your big mouth about us to the Daily Planet. We can't exactly be a secret criminal organization if they know we exist. Metallo puts his metallic hands up, palms out in a calm down gesture. I'm sorry, I didn't know you guys wanted to stick to the shadows. The Atomic Skull crossed his arms behind his back beneath his flowing green cape and paced for a few moments. He stopped right in front of Metallo and looked him square in the eyes. You are correct, Mr. Corbin. We did not want to we did want to remain in the shadows a bit longer. We were not ready for our coming out party just yet. That is one of the reasons why I sent you to kill Superman. And you certainly bollocksed that up, now didn't you? Sir, Dr. Vale stepped forward, the index finger of his right hand pointed up. Roger may have indeed fouled this up, but we can use that foul up to our advantage. Go on, Emmett, I'm listening. Dr. Vale smiled. The Thermaton 14 blasters attached to his forearms and powered by the kryptonite have definitely performed better than I had thought. In fact, they have most certainly exceeded expectations. Meaning? The lenses in the blasters don't seem to just focus the green kryptonite, but in fact they almost supercharge it. If I had to venture a guess, I would say that they might have increased the lethality of the kryptonite by a factor of, 10 to 20 rads. I think finding that out is worth the penalty of him opening mouth and inserting foot. You make an excellent point, as always, Emmett. I want you to do further testing in this vein and see what else we can glean here. As for you, Metallo, I'm going to forgive you for this, but only this once. We hear Metallo speaking in a voiceover. On the inside, I was breathing the proverbial sigh of relief. Of course, that didn't prepare me for what happened next. The Atomic Skull's head seemed to be engulfed in a swirling nimbus of energy that immediately lanced from his head in a blast of pure psionic force into Metallo's chest, knocking him off his feet and through the air at least 10 feet before he crashed down to the cold cement floor in a loud metallic thud. That is just a sample of what I can do, Mr. Corbin. Be sure that you remember this before you open your big mouth again to the press. Or you might find I will renege on our arrangement and you will not see your nephew ever again. Capiche? With that, the Atomic Skull turned and marched from the room, his green cape flapping behind him. Metallo sat on the floor, holding his chin in his left hand. We hear Metallo speaking in a voiceover. Roger, what in the hell did you get yourself mixed up in this time? This is worse than that deal you made with Vexman and Luthor. Commercial break.
Yeah. I'm so glad I called it. Like, yeah, it's because as soon as Metallo opened his mouth, I was like, "Oh, he fucked up."
Yeah.
Well, that is his Achilles heel in every episode. He opens his mouth.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Yep.
soon as you started saying that, it's like, yeah, we're a secret organization, and you just told the Daily Planet about us. Like, yeah,
And of course, told Superman because he's standing right there.
yeah.
Right. Can you just shut
It's
up for
really
5 minutes, Corbin? Jeez.
yeah.
Wow. But yeah, like this is really really good, Chris. I
Yeah.
like you just again. I'm going to say it till I'm blue in the face. You nailed Michael Kellen's Metallo. You really did. Because as you're
Absolutely.
reading it, I could totally see him doing all these things, these mannerisms and the voiceovers, and yeah, it's just really well done.
And
I'm
I
glad.
love that you've given a demonstration of Atomic Skull's power as well, like with the psionic energy blast. Because it's like, let's face it, with a lot of the time when villains and stuff are adapted for television and movies and stuff, that there's a tendency to either depower them or just completely change everything. But
Yeah.
he's still got some powers. He's not just a mob boss who wears a skull mask. He's he's not Black Mask
Yeah.
from Gotham. But yeah, loving it.
Yeah. Like I said, he's one of my favorite of the Bronze Age Superman villains, and I have to do him. I have to do him right, because if I don't do him right, then all the fans who watch the podcast, when they and knows the character, they're going to be flipping out because, oh, you didn't do him right.
Yeah, and you have license to change things, but it's always good to try and stick to the what's the word? Stick to the feel, the tone, the flavor of the original, and I
Yeah.
think you've accomplished that absolutely.
Yeah, my friend Pat always says that you can make some changes to a character, but as long as you keep the meat of the character, you still have their personality right, you know, people will be okay with it. But you have to keep the meat of it there. So that's what I've been trying to do. And he's like I said, he's one of my favorite Superman foes, and I have to do him right. I mean,
Yeah.
hell, I even made an action figure of him. So
Yeah, you did. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, so far this is a really good episode. I again, like what you did in part 1, like just the world building is just spot on, and it all makes sense. So
And
yeah,
it's
it's not
already
like
paying off.
yeah, it's not
yeah,
like all of season 4, which was clip show after clip show after clip show.
Yeah.
well they had no money. They had money running out, so
How many clip shows were there in season 4?
Let's
People
see.
versus Metallo, Who is Superboy?
No,
Those are
People
2.
versus Metallo was season 3.
Okay,
Oh, was it?
still it's a clip show.
Who is Superboy?
Who is Superboy? Um,
The one where he's
the
on the couch.
obituary for a superhero. That was another clip show.
No, it
Right.
wasn't a clip show. That was just
Interviews, wasn't it?
it was interviews.
Yeah. Okay.
The one when he had to go on the
Cat
couch
and Mouse.
though.
Cat and
Yeah.
Mouse. Yeah.
Was one of those one that Gerard actually wrote himself? Because I know that he wrote a clip show apparently. I think unless I'm remembering completely wrong.
I think it might have been Cat and Mouse.
Yeah.
But it was.
That's what it
But
was.
you know what? That one was a clip show that actually served the purpose
of the story. Yes.
Yeah, it wasn't a clip show to just have a clip show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like the Stargate SG-1 style clip show. Like it's a clip show, but it moves the story forward.
Right. We're gonna tell a story within the clip show. Yeah. So it works. But yeah.
That's the way a clip show should be used. Yes, you are low on money, and you have to have another episode to fill your quota.
Right.
But you have to have a story that services the clips you're using.
Mm. And let's face it, some shows. There's a reason people kind of despise clip shows, but when it's done right, it can work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're getting off topic, but I mean, Stargate the Next Star Trek the Next Generation had some pretty awful clip shows.
But, I think they only had the one, and that was in season 2.
Right, I think that's the one I'm thinking of. But it feels like they did one like every couple of seasons. But maybe
the Secrets of Superboy. That was another clip show. That kind of served.
Was that season 4 as well?
That was season 2. That was with Knick Knack.
Oh right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Too many clip shows.
Yeah.
They didn't have a good budget, so it makes sense. Yeah.
All
Anyway,
right, so
Uh,
let's
we ready?
continue.
let's get back to the episode. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Let's go.
All right. So commercial break ends. We hear Metallo speaking in a voiceover. Now, I was unaware that a little while after I got my keister handed to me, figuratively speaking, of course, that Kent, Lane, and Olson from the Daily Planet were making an impromptu visit to Star Labs and were getting an earful from Dr. Michaels. Interior Star Labs Metropolis, same day, late afternoon. That is quite correct, Ms. Lane, Dr. Michaels was saying. Gone, both of them. Lois Lane stood in front of Dr. Michaels, arms folded across her chest. Dr. Michaels, I find it rather difficult to believe that you could lose the chief scientist in charge of Metallo's convalescence, as well as Metallo himself. Metallo was just on the street in front of the Daily Planet, apparently technologically upgraded, re equipped with kryptonite, and he nearly killed Superman. What do you have to say about this? I mean, don't these facts completely contradict what you told us a week ago? Lane's tone was excited and animated as she pressed Dr. Michaels for answers. Ms. Lane, I can assure you that I only just discovered their disappearances shortly after the incident you are referring to. Emmett told me that he was moving Mr. Corbin to one of our smaller facilities in Hobbs Bay for some surgical work that needed to be done off site about 6 days ago. He had been making regular daily phone reports to me about Corbin's progress, but I had no idea that they had not been at the other facility until an hour ago when I heard what was going on. Had I been aware of this before then, I would have been on the phone with Captain Sawyer of the Special Crimes Unit. This is absolutely not what I envisioned happening when Emmett and I discussed with Dr. Stern about transferring Mr. Corbin here to Metropolis. Dr. Michaels, you do, of course, remember that I did say that this was what was going to happen. Call me cynical, but I am really not that surprised. Actually, Lois, Jimmy interjected, you never said that this was going to happen. You just merely questioned if that is what they were doing. Lois turned to Jimmy, the index finger of her right hand pointed up in a shut up gesture, her brown eyes flaring with anger at the photographer. Jimmy backed away to get out of reach of Lois's ability to hit him. Dr. Michaels, Kent stepped forward. No one here is accusing you of turning a blind eye. Far from it. I just think that my colleague, Ms. Lane, is concerned by how this looks. Believe me, Mr. Kent, I understand her point of view. I am just shocked by all of this, just as you three are. Rest assured, I am going to get to the bottom of this. This kind of thing has never before occurred while I have been in charge of Star Labs Metropolis. Kent nodded at Michael's response. Lois, however, stood there with a look of distrust on her face. She wasn't buying it, not in the least. The three exchanged goodbyes with Dr. Michaels and exited his office, walking in silence for a long moment, until out on the sidewalk in front of Star Labs, Lois finally spoke up. He's lying, you know. Lois, forgive me for being naive, but how do you know he's lying? Clark stood there, an incredulous look etched on his face. Easy, Kent. I know his type. I've read up about Dr. Albert Michaels. He's a type A personality with control issues. Stuff like this does not get past somebody like that. He's either A, an accomplice, B, behind it, or C, he's just incompetent and he's trying to cover up the fact that he's not. He's got flimflammed. And Kent, my vote is on either option A or option B, because given his personality type, C is just plain impossible. Jimmy mutters under his breath, that's not the only thing that is plain impossible right now. Lois shot Jimmy an icy look. I heard that. I know you did. Clark shook his head and sighed. Okay, let's not fight here. We're all on the same team, Lois. Lois, I will grant you that given what you have said, you are probably not wrong. Be that as it may, you can't just accuse him to his face of being involved. This is like that interview we did with Lex Luthor all over again. Kent, take a cab. Jimmy and I are going back to the planet in my car. Lois and Jimmy walked back to Lois's car, leaving Ken stranded. Again. He stood there for the longest time, not saying anything. As much as Clark respected her as a reporter, he found her to be just a tad abrasive. Clark looked around and ducked into a nearby alley and changed into Superman. He took flight, winging his way back towards the planet, but making a quick detour to Suicide Slum first. He had something he had to do first before he went back to the office. He just hoped that what he was planning worked. Commercial break.
Oh yeah, I love that Maggie Sawyer got a mention. Like, yeah, Detective Sawyer, great. Or
Again,
Captain Sawyer.
just more world building and like, you know, more characters that we'll see down the line in season 5, you know,
And maybe 6.
and 6. Yes.
Yeah. Let's face it. I think we intend to keep this going as long as we can.
Yeah.
As long as we've still got stories, like let's
Mm-hmm.
keep it going.
We'll keep this going until all 3 of us are long buried.
Yeah, or until we're kicked off of YouTube.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I'm loving it so far, and I think Lois's that whole thing about the 3 options and how option 3, like being incompetent, probably impossible because his personality type just wouldn't warrant, like
Yeah.
it wouldn't allow for it. Totally makes sense, and it shows sort of she's been a reporter for a while, and she's got a really good nose for this sort of thing, and she trusts her gut. And I think, yeah, I'm looking forward to finding out, which of the 3 options is true. Like maybe, yeah, it'd be funny if both option A and B are somehow connected. I don't know, but it's
And
great.
I got to say, I had to give Jimmy at least one line. And
He had a
making it
great line. Yeah, he had a great line.
Yeah, I love that. Just like a little bit of yeah, a little bit of a comment at Lois, and yeah,
and it definitely harkens back to what you were trying to do by bringing in, Terry Hatcher and Michael Landis as Lois and Jimmy.
mm.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's
Season 1 Jimmy and Lois and Clark. Like I think he would do that. He had a little bit more of an edge to him. I think you know, season 1 Jimmy in Lois and Clark, like he could pick locks, he could steal a car, like he was like a kid who grew up on the streets. He had a little bit of an edge to him when he needed to be. Season 2 Jimmy, like a car won't stop going, he doesn't think to take the keys out of the ignition. Like he got a major downgrade in terms of intelligence and street smarts for season 2, and it's a shame. So it's why I've
Mm-hmm.
always preferred Michael Landis, and I think you've captured his version of Jimmy quite well.
yeah, and as much as I like Landis, there were certain things about Justin Whalen that were good. I mean, he looked more like the way Jimmy Olsen is
Hmm.
supposed to look. Michael Landis, he almost looked exactly like Dean Cain. So I think that's why they changed him, because they look too much
Right.
alike.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I actually interviewed him a few years ago at a Comic Con, and he said that's exactly the reason. They said, in fact, apparently the producers said to him the reason was he looked too much like Dean Cain and Terry Hatcher.
Yeah.
And apparently like people thought, you know, apparently there was confusion among the audience. I don't know who in the audience was actually getting confused about who Jimmy was, but yeah,
Well, they might,
apparently there were questions about is he their son or something, and it's like, well, of course he's
yeah,
fucking not.
they might not have changed him if they'd gone with the original choice for Superman for Lois and Clark, which was Kevin Sorbo.
Yeah.
But
I'm
we'll
glad
never know.
they didn't, because Kevin Sorbo, my god.
I can't see him as Superman. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, who knows?
Yeah, at the time maybe it would have been different, but I don't know. I can't see him as
Yeah.
Superman. Sorry.
I've
The
never
the
thought
only
he was a
thing that
particularly good actor.
yeah,
I've
the only
always been more of a Xena fan than a Hercules.
the only thing that Kevin Sorbo had on Kane was the fact that he is physically imposing the way Superman's supposed to be.
Right.
Mm.
He's yeah,
Well,
he's gigantic. He's huge.
Kane put on a lot of muscle for that role. Like he wasn't small, but
Right, but what I'm
Sorbo
saying,
was like muscle man. Yeah.
no, Sorbo is typical Scandinavian, so they're tall. He's
I would have
well
rather
over.
Yeah, I would have rather see the guy that's on your poster, Tom, continue in the role. That would have been nice.
Yeah.
Well, that almost
That's all
happened, as
right.
we all
That's
know.
Yeah.
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 That's what happens in our universe.
Right. Right.
But yeah.
All right, so we ready to continue?
Let's
We are
continue.
indeed.
All right. Commercial break ends. We hear Metallo speaking in a voiceover. After Dr. Vale fixed me up after the atomic skull gave me my spanking, They opened up a doorway back to the street in front of the Daily Planet. Atomic Skull wasn't there when they sent me back, but the doc told me to go back, call Superman out, kill him, and keep my mouth shut. I was starting to have serious misgivings about this whole mess. What if I kill Superman and they still renege on the deal? I could just hear John now yelling at his moron of a kid brother and for being a punk. I should have never made this deal with Skull. I should have put my trust in those reporters and Superman. I guess maybe finding out that they were working against Intergang, the same group that once took Dad and John away from me, kind of blinded me to what was really important. Seeing the last remnant of my brother, my last bit of family. As much as I wanted to turn myself in, I knew that if I did, I wouldn't get another second chance. I was going to keep my end up, and if that yellow and green clad Popinjay double crossed me, I'd break his neck. Exterior, the street in front of the Daily Planet, late afternoon. Metallo stood in the street in front of the planet. The debris still hadn't been fully cleared. He took a deep breath and readied himself. Superman! Come on out, and let's finish this. Metallo waited patiently for long moments that seemed to slow down and drag. After a few brief moments, he finally heard that familiar buzzing, rushing wind sound. Superman was here. The hero landed in the street about 10 feet from Metallo. They stared each other down. You going to give up, Metallo? Superman asked, almost pleading with his old adversary. No, Metallo replied. I'm not. It's either you or me, and I don't intend it to be me. As he spoke to Superman, the Man of Steel couldn't hear the usual overconfidence and bravado that Metallo was usually known for. It didn't seem to Superman that Metallo's heart was still in this fight. I'm not going to fight you, Metallo. Not anymore. Do what you have to. Metallo was taken aback. He was surprised by the Man of Steel's attitude. You're going to make it easy for me? Yes, I am. But first, since now that I am the condemned man, would you be so kind to grant me a last request? I don't see why not. Thank you, Roger. Superman turned his head behind him to his left. Can you come out, please? From out of the nearby alley stepped a young man in his late 20s, with short brown hair. Metallo took one look at the young man and gasped. Standing a few feet away from him was a young man who was the spitting image of his late brother John. Superman had kept his promise and found his nephew Johnny, played by actor Scott Valentine of Family Ties fame. Johnny? Hi, Uncle Roger. There were tears streaming down Metallo's face as he ran up and embraced his nephew. You're the spitting image of your dad. The two stood motionless as they hugged for what seemed like an eternity. Metallo finally looked over at Superman. How? Kent helped me. He tracked him down this morning. He was trying to get in touch with me to tell me when you attacked me earlier. We hear Metallo speaking in a voiceover. And that is the moment when I started feeling like a real chump again. What happened next completely surprised even me. All around the trio, a series of energy doorways opened up, and at least 30 well-armed skull troopers surrounded them, followed by the Atomic Skull himself. He strode forward, arms clasped beneath his cape behind his back. Corbin, he began. I can't help but notice that Superman is still alive. Do you have by any chance an explanation for this turn of events? Metallo stepped away from his nephew, striding forward with renewed confidence. Superman kept his promise to me, Atomic Skull. The deal is off, and I'm going to turn myself in. The Atomic Skull stood there, and even though the skull mask he wore beneath his metallic yellow helmet prevented one from seeing his facial expressions, it almost seemed like he was sneering beneath his mask. Is that so? Yeah, it is. And what are you and your thugs going to do about it? Oh, not much, except this. The Atomic Skull's head once again was engulfed in a swirling nimbus of energy that immediately lanced from his head in a blast of pure psionic force, this time into Johnny Corbin, knocking him unconscious. At the sight of his nephew crumpling to the ground, Metallo became enraged and leapt at the atomic skull, but was knocked back by another blast of psionic energy from the villain's head. Gentlemen, the atomic skull shouted, open fire. Time seemed to slow down for Superman as his super speed kicked in, and he jumped in front of Metallo just as the Skull Trooper's high tech blasters fired, hitting the Man of Steel instead of the man with the kryptonite heart. Metallo was still dazed from the atomic skull's force blast, but even still, he could feel a set of arms pulling him to safety. Turning his head to look up, he discovered it was Jimmy Olsen pulling him out of the way. Lois Lane was also there, and she was pulling Johnny out of the line of fire. Metallo shrugged Jimmy Olsen off. Superman needs my help. I owe him. Metallo was back on his feet in seconds, back to back with the Man of Steel, with Superman deflecting the beams from the energy rifles off his body, and Metallo returning fire with his Thermaton 14 blasters. Superman couldn't help but smile at the irony of all this. A few hours ago, Metallo was trying to kill him, and now he was trying to save him, and all because he reunited with his nephew. Apparently, there was still some good in Metallo. You mind turning down the thunder a tad, Metallo? Huh? The kryptonite. Oh, right. I can't. It's not like the old setup. Sorry. The atomic skull stood back from the firefight. He was now smirking beneath his mask. From his belt, he produced a small remote control like device. He pressed a few buttons on it, and Metallo's body started convulsing as electrical energy coursed through it. Metallo collapsed to the ground as the kryptonite dome ejected from his chest, and he was caught by the atomic skull. Gentlemen, the atomic skull ordered his troops. Time to leave. Collect the boy. As he said this, two skull troopers knocked Lois and Jimmy aside as they grabbed the unconscious Johnny Corbin and disappeared through more energy doorways. Superman was on his knees at Metallo's side, flashing a look of uncontrolled rage at the atomic skull. We shall be seeing each other again, Superman. You can count on that. Who are you? Superman was trying to use his X ray vision to see through the atomic skull's mask, but his vision was cloudy, obscured. The atomic skull was smart. He lined his mask and helmet with lead. I'm the man with the kryptonite, Superman. But, he chuckled, if you must have a name, you may call me the Atomic Skull. And I am your worst nightmare. The atomic skull disappeared into another energy doorway, and then all was quiet. Metallo was laying in the street, coughing. We hear Metallo speaking in a voiceover. So this is about where you nice folks came in with me on the ground and the Boy Scout leaning over me. I ain't got much time, Superman. You gotta promise me you'll get him back. You gotta promise me. I will, Metallo. I will. No uncertain terms. I'll get him back. You hear that music? It's kind of like a loud flute. Realization appears on Superman's face. The angel of death was here for Metallo. I'm not going to let her take you, Metallo. Death can't have you. Can't have you. It's okay, big guy. I've been living on borrowed time for 4 years now. Time to cash out. With that, Metallo went limp in the street, gasping his last breath. Superman looked up, and for the briefest of moments, he saw the spirit of John Corbin, his body whole as it had been before his accident, standing next to a beautiful brunette in a flowing white cloak playing a flute. John Corbin smiled at Superman briefly, and then the brunette stopped playing before the two of them vanished. She looked at Superman, and in a very matter of fact tone said, Be seeing you. The street was cold and silent. Lois Lane walked up behind Superman and put her hand on his shoulder. We hear Metallo speaking in a voiceover. That was the end of my story. I don't know what happened afterwards, so I can't really say. I can only assume that Superman kept his word and went after those crumbs and got my nephew back. Interior, a darkened limousine, late evening. The atomic skull sat with his hands steepled in front of him. Dr. Emmett Vale was sitting there, sipping champagne. How did the boy take the news of his uncle's untimely demise, Emmett? Emmett Vale chuckled. Oh, I'd say about as well as he took to being turned into Metallo version 2. The new design that I came up with for young Johnny with the metallic blue chess piece is light years ahead of what I had for his uncle. I don't think that you will have any problems with handling him. He believes the story I told him that Superman was too busy trying to get you to save his uncle from dying in the street. Good, the atomic skull said as he began to remove the helmet and mask from his head, revealing himself as Dr. Albert Michaels. Wearing that thing can be quite stuffy at times, but its anonymity is most welcome. Dr. Vale continued to sip his champagne. He started to feel odd and was trying to loosen his tie and collar, shaking his head. I feel weird. Dr. Michaels was looking at his watch. Right on time, he said. What do you mean? Emmett, your champagne was spiked with a fast acting poison. I can't have you running around now, can I? What? Vale was choking and foaming from the mouth. The poison was almost finished with him. He gasped for air as Michaels continued to talk. You see, Emmett, Skull is going to continue. And in order to do that, I need plausible deniability. The atomic skull is not the esteemed Dr. Albert Michaels. No, no. He is the now disgraced and missing Dr. Emmett Vale. You served your purpose, Emmett. You gave Skull the weapons we needed, both in the form of hardware and in the two men called Metallo. Thank you, Emmett. My plans are now coming together quite neatly. Too bad you won't get to see the end game. The limousine drives off into the night.
Awesome.
That was really good. Wow.
Yeah. And I love that we're now set up for Metallo 2.0. Like, yeah,
Mhm.
I can't wait to see where this goes. And yeah, I think the fact that I'm not overly familiar with Atomic Skull kind of helped with the twist as well. Like, I'm guessing if I was more familiar, I would have seen a little bit more of it coming, maybe. But the
Yep.
fact
I,
that I didn't, yeah,
and the fact that I used Scott Valentine as Johnny was perfect because we're
Mhm.
keeping some of Lois and Clark alive. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of like the
absolutely.
same. I mean, Superboy kind of lent itself to leading it right into Lois and Clark. So
Yeah.
if Gerard would
Mm,
continued in the role, I could totally see like them just continuing it into that series, which is probably
Yeah.
what should have happened if you ask me.
yeah.
But but yeah, this was
No
fantastic.
arguments from us.
Yeah, this was
You know,
fantastic.
we would have
Great
loved to
episode.
have seen. Yeah,
Well, thank you.
yeah.
I'm glad you guys
Abs-
enjoyed.
it was great. Seriously,
It was
seriously,
awesome.
well done.
Awesome.
Like, yeah,
Because you nailed the
really, really cool.
characters. Like the Lois interaction was fantastic. Everybody was the Jimmy stuff was great. But I could totally see Michael Kellen just delivering this performance. Like it was so good. So
Mm.
thank
Am
you,
I right
Chris.
in
That was so
thinking
good.
then that it's yeah, Brent Spiner is Atomic Skull then?
Yes.
I could
That's
yeah.
cool.
Brent is awesome when he's evil. So so
I was
yeah.
trying to
This was
remember which actor was which, like Atomic Brent Spiner and the other guy, because yeah, yeah,
yeah.
it's awesome.
It
Brent
was
Spiner as Atomic Skull is going to be great. Like, I can't wait to see
right.
that come back. And yeah, the next episode you write, like seriously, you need to keep up the Atomic Skull story. I think because it's really really good, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I think you've done an absolutely fantastic job with this episode.
Great
And
job with your first episode, Chris. This was
Well,
so good.
thanks,
Very good.
guys. I was trying my best to kind of adhere to the outline of the way to write
Yeah.
it that Tom gave me. I'm not used to writing story outlines and scripts and all that. I'm more used to prose. You know,
hmm
but
It was very professionally done. Very. I thought it was very professionally done.
and
absolutely.
I tried to keep every character as fresh and unique and to the way they're supposed to be as possible.
Right. Right.
Mm.
I again, as you were reading it, it sounded like Michael Kellen jumping off the page. Like it was his Metallo coming through, like through and through. So, like
Mm.
that was fantastic. So, and I love how he stops himself going, Superboy, Superman. You're Superman now? Like, come
Yeah.
on.
I
Yeah.
think we need to make that a running joke in season 5.
Yeah,
People keep
totally.
definitely.
But
You might have to rewrite your next episode a little bit, Tom.
I think I'm at least gonna add one line, like referencing it, because I think that's gonna be a fun ongoing joke. I think by season 6, people have sort of got their head around it, but for season 5, let's just keep this going because I think it's a fun little gag.
well,
Yeah.
well, coming up, I think I'm next with my episode, and then Chris, we're going back, or Tom, we're going back to you, and then Chris, we're gonna come back to you, and then yeah,
Hmm.
um, yeah, it's gonna be fun. So,
Yeah,
but yeah,
I'm
this was a great
definitely going to
episode.
bring Metallo back, or at least Metallo 2 back in my
Mhm.
next episode.
Hmm.
And I thought of a perfect title for the episode.
Okay.
and it's going to
Teeth.
tie into Brent Spiner being there as the Atomic Skull and Dr. Albert Michaels. It's going to be called Metallo, the Next Generation.
The Next Generation.
Perfect.
Right on the nose. Totally on the
Yeah.
nose. But if you liked this video today, Superboy fans, you could like the video, and please, if you haven't already, please subscribe on YouTube. Um, to not miss anything from Superboy the Legacy, go to superboylegacy.com. There's a whole bunch of announcements that we've just announced in the last couple days, last 2 weeks, really. Douglas Barry Myers, Bizarro himself, will be at the Superman celebration at the Hidden Gems Minicon, along with our really good friend Michael Mano, who played Leo during the first season. I just announced him the other day, and he will be there as well. Both of these gentlemen, this is their first conventions ever representing the Superboy series. So um, these are two very rare appearances. So are if you have any plans, I suggest going down to the Superman celebration this year, because it's just bigger than ever. They have Tom Welling and Michael Rosenbaum from Smallville, that are the main celebrities for the Superman celebration. George Newberry, who was the voice of Superman from Justice League, is also going to be there. But Douglas, Barry Myers, Bizarro, and Michael Mano, they've never done a show before. So if you can, go down there and support the Adventures of Superboy. They would love to see you, and they're going to take photos and autographs with the fans, and it's going to be a blast. And they're going to be there June 10th and June 11th. So for more information, just visit superboylegacy.com. Go to supermanmuseum.com as well. So with that, Chris, this was an awesome episode. We're going to continue along with season 5. My episode's going to be next. We've talked about it. I'm really excited. So, but again, season 5 continues. So,
Yep.
for
Oh, and
Superboy, go ahead,
Sam, you
Chris. Go ahead.
forgot one thing.
Yeah.
We've mentioned this on the Facebook page. Superboy has just been added to the Tubi TV
Oh, that's right.
streaming service. Okay,
Right. Right.
Tubi is free to use. You don't have to pay for it. There's no monthly subscription or anything like that. Um, all 4 seasons are there. They are in order. I know anybody who has some experience with Tubi knows that sometimes when they put TV series up, they either only have 1 or 2 seasons, or they have all of them, but they're out of order. They're all in order. They're not mislabeled. There's only one little glitch, and that's the season 3 episode, The Lair. They miswrote it in their description as The Liar. Okay, but all 4 seasons are there. The quality is absolutely great on them. This is the first time that I've actually watched it streaming. Okay, and I know you were mentioning a while back when we were talking about the DVD sets that the Bizarro episode, the first Bizarro episode, there's a slight fuzziness in one of the episodes. That's the first time I've actually seen it, because before that I was only watching it on my DVDs. So that's there, but I think they're taking it straight from the MOD discs.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's still the same quality. I still say the best way to watch Superboy is on Apple TV, because I think those are the uncompressed ones. But
yeah,
you could tell like there's certain artifacting around Superboy's S. Sometimes you see a little bit of blotches and blockiness, and
yeah,
it's nothing that's gonna detract from the watching the episodes. But
yeah.
the purists like us, like
Yeah,
we
but the
want the
best
very
part is the
best.
fact. Yeah, the best part though is the fact that it's there. I mean, we were
Right.
talking about this like a year and a half ago, that once the DC Universe app, kind of folded,
Mm-hmm.
and Superboy was taken off of there, I was saying it was either going to end up on HBO Max, or Tubi was going to get it, and
Yeah.
Tubi got it. So for those
Thank
of you
God.
who have Tubi, and you want to watch it, you don't have the DVD sets, it is there. Make sure that when you do watch it, you do hit the thumbs up on it, so that they'll know that you like it, and that hopefully they'll keep it for indefinitely.
Yeah.
Fingers
Don't know if
crossed.
they will, but every thumbs up will help.
Exactly. Chris, thank you for mentioning. Totally slipped my mind. It was funny because a couple of other Superman fans, right when it happened, I think Tom, you messaged me Chris, you messaged me. A couple other people messaged me, and I was like, wow, that's crazy that it just showed up on Tubi. So,
Well, Chris is
um,
the one that told me. So
oh, okay.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
Chris, you
I was
told
just
me too.
yeah.
Yeah, that was
I
awesome.
periodically search on Tubi for like anything Superman related.
Okay.
Because they for a while there they had the Ruby Spears animated series from '88,
Yeah.
and they took it off, and I was looking to see if maybe it had come back, and I put in Superman, and all of a sudden I see Superboy. I was
Right.
like, holy crap. So
Yeah.
I look at it just to make sure that they had all 4 seasons, because they had the image they use is the stock image of the season 1 DVD cover with
Right.
John.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, oh God, it's probably just the season 1 episodes, but it's all 4 seasons.
Yeah, and I've had people message me going, I didn't have a chance to see it, like, because they're overseas, and now if you have a VPN, you could watch it, like, whatever. And people are watching it, and like I've had a couple people message me going, wow, this is so good. So, um, yeah, just it has another life on Tubi now. So, um, can't wait to see how many people find it and enjoy it, and yeah,
And then message us about it because they found
yeah.
it and they loving it.
Right. Right. It's that Lost series, Superman series that not a lot of people saw. So I'm really excited that people are finding it on YouTube. Sorry, we're on YouTube, but the show's on Tubi. So again, as Chris mentioned, go on Tubi, set up an account. It's all free, and you could start streaming the series. Um, Thinking about having a rewatch. We could rewatch the episodes and comment on certain ones. You
Yeah.
know, we'll have a watch party one night of just some of the best episodes, and that would be a blast. So, again, thank Chris. Go ahead. Anything
Yep.
else?
The only other thing about Tubi though is when
Yeah.
you're watching a series on there,
Mm-hmm.
it does once you get to the end of the series, it doesn't just stop. Okay, it restarts the series again. So if you missed anything the first watch around, you can get it in the second watch around. So
There you
that's
go.
always a good thing.
So, Tom, anything you want to say before we wrap this episode up?
no, I mean I think it's pretty much all been covered. I'm looking forward to hearing your episode of season 5 next time, and
It's gonna be
yeah,
cool. Gonna be cool.
yeah,
But
really looking forward to it.
Sam,
And Chris,
just a
thank you
question
again.
since Tom has not mentioned it to me. What is your episode exactly going to be?
um I'm kind of debating it between two storylines right now. So, um I'll run it by you guys later on
Okay,
the next podcast. But
all right.
yeah, I have a couple ideas for a couple story threads that were left like on the table after seasons 3 and seasons 4. So, that I want to develop. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Okay.
But
And for once as well, we've
yeah,
actually got another episode written. Like I have written my next one. So if
he
it's
has
a
his.
couple of
Yeah.
months and yours isn't quite ready, like
Yeah.
we've got one we can throw in there anyway. So
Well,
it's
I've
don't
had
worry,
this
people watching.
well,
We've got something ready.
I've had this idea for a long time, so it's just sitting down and actually putting pen to paper. So that's what it is. But for Superboy
Sweet.
the Legacy, I'm Sam Rizzo.
I'm Chris
Uh
Jacobsen.
Chris,
I'm Tom
thank you.
Gallagher.
Thank
Yeah,
you guys.
thank you, Chris. That was really really cool. Thank you
Chris,
very
that was an
much.
awesome episode. Again, really well done. Please, again, if you like the video, please give us a thumbs up. Go like and subscribe to the podcast. We're up on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're everywhere. So if you don't want to miss anything again, just go to superboylegacy.com. So thank you guys. Thank you, Superboy fans, for all your support. And again, can't wait to see everybody in June. It's going to be a lot of fun. So thank you, and we'll see you later. Bye.